Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome back to Government Contracting Weekly. As you all know, the largest sector in the government contracting space is defense. But now, with the prospect of sequestration and the certainty of budget cuts, we thought it would be beneficial to bring to you, our viewer, an interview with two knowledgeable leaders, both who have tremendous insights in this area and who are facing immensely complicated issues, realistically, but also with a sense of long-term optimism. With us this morning is Steve Gaffney, the Chairman and CEO and President of Dyn International, as well as Alan Weakley, the President of the Defense Group at CSC. We're also joined by an expert from Key Solutions, Greg McCarthy, who will give us his advice on how you, the government contractor, could most successfully operate during these unusual and challenging times. There's a lot of ground to cover this morning, so let's get right to it. Welcome today. We're welcoming you back to the segment of our program where we have Steve Gaffney, the Chairman of DynCorp, who's going to share with us some of his opinions on what's going on in the marketplace. Steve, your career reads like a sort of a who's who of the leadership in the defense industry. You've had a stellar career at major firms in this region. Of what you've seen from ITT and now at DynCorp and at Smith and all the firms you've been at, what are some of the major changes you're aware of today and our audience should really know about?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And so one way that I like to look at it is, if I go back over the 30 years or so, what I've noticed is that you always actually have to look at what's been going on in the country, which then kind of feeds into how does the Defense Department and the acquisition arm react.
Yeah.
So I started in the 80s, and if you think about what was going on in the 70s.
Before I was born.
Yeah, okay. It was somewhat of a chaotic time.
It was a tough time.
With Watergate and Vietnam War and the hostage crisis.
National apathy and anti-defense somewhat.
Yeah, and that was followed by the 80s, which I think was almost like a rebirth.
With Reagan bringing back in defense, nationalistic
good,
feelings.
Right,
yeah.
building,
building defense, national pride.
But there weren't a lot of dollars, right? So the budgets were low. But there was this partnership, I think, between the government and industry, which led to most of the contracts at that time were fixed price. Right. So it was very common to take fixed price contracts for very complex projects. And because of that partnership, I think a lot got done.
And people talk about the conversation across the aisle too. People talk about the fact that Reagan and Tip O'Neill used to sit down and actually have a cocktail and decide things together.
Yeah,
and that happened with also defense and industry more.
It did.
Yeah.
And in fact, I didn't sense back then the same type of, let's say, relationship as we have today.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. So then in the 90s, what did you have? You had the peace dividend, you had the fall of the Cold War being over. And there was almost sort of a complacency that set in, I feel.
Within the defense industry?
In the defense industry. There was more cost-plus type of work. The government decided to go to more of a total system performance type of philosophy. They down-selected to a couple key primes and then allowed those primes to actually do the selection process into the industry. And during the 90s, looking back, I don't remember a lot of great things getting done. And then when you turn the corner into the first 10 years of this millennium.
After 9/11.
After 9/11,
yes,
it changed everything. So obviously there was a lot of compelling needs that were new.
Cybersecurity, national security.
Cybersecurity, just a lot of things necessary to support the men and women supporting national security and foreign policy. So what did you see? You saw competition, you saw lots of innovation, and you started to see a lot of reliance on one another, both industry and government, to get things done. So as I look back over those 30 years, I think some of the things that, a lot of things changed, but I think clearly what stayed the same was whenever there was a lot of competition, it really brought out the best in industry from an innovation and from a resourcefulness. So that's kind of what I take away over my career.
Steve, now we're at a point where the president's actually called it an inflection point, and where, you know, there are not going to be the same deployments in Iraq, where we're pulling back, and the whole of the defense industry is obviously shifting dramatically. What about for our viewers, you know, the defense contractors out there, and for DynCorp, what are you looking at in terms of your shifting? Where is your mind and your planning and your orientation shifting to?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that are changing, and I think for the companies that are actually going to make a difference over the next few years, they started seeing these changes years ago. Anticipating. So I know we've been doing that. So I know 2 years ago we started down a path, really reshaping our portfolio, reshaping, you know, how we went to market and how we actually tried to serve the customer.
And that's a lot of your leadership coming to the firm.
I hope so. I mean,
Yes.
there was a lot of good work done way before I got there. But I'm hopeful that I took it to the next level, and in fact that's what we're seeing in terms of some of our performance. So what does that mean? Do I think we're fundamentally going to shift away from national security and supporting contingency work? I don't think so.
No.
But do I see a time where we're actually going to shift to the Pacific Rim or shift to actually trying to serve the mission much more efficiently? And the answer to that is yes.
So a global shift, geographic shift.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so again, it goes back to kind of what I've seen earlier in my career, where we're going to be asked to do more with less.
And what government wants efficiencies, the taxpayer wants efficiencies.
Yeah, actually, I would like efficiencies,
right?
right?
We all do,
I'm a
yes.
big taxpayer. So those are the types of things we've been focused on. How do we serve the mission better? And that's why we restructure. That's why we look at getting the leadership in place that actually looks towards the future and not so much towards the past. You know, how can we better serve that customer so that in the future they pick us for new wins?
Steve, you have had a lot of wins recently, and as I've heard you say that those are based a lot on the values. You're very strong on the right kind of values, the right kind of people, how you treat your people at DynCorp. You've won, I know, with NASA and Army and Air Force, etc. Do you want to address what you see as some of the keys to those wins? Are they the values, and what is it about the values for our audience when they're looking at building their companies and winning too? What should they look to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And throughout my entire career, I've tried to spend more time on the front end, where there's actually more ambiguity in the process, than probably on the back end, you know, where there's much more tactical things needed to do. And it all comes down to literally building a team that actually is able to confront the realities of the marketplace on a recurring basis in order to figure out ways to win. And so one of the things we did, so my predecessor, for instance,
Not Dan Bannister?
no, this is Bill Ballhaus.
Okay.
So he made a decision that every week he would actually hold meetings where he would track receivables and cash flow. And as you know, cash flow is pretty important.
Cash is king, they say, yeah.
Cash is king, and I actually value it quite a bit as well. But we have hundreds of people in our company that know how to do that really well. And so what I've decided to do is I would rather spend my time every Friday talking about new business. So I get my top leaders in a room every Friday where we actually go line by line through all the opportunities, both near term and long term, trying to figure out what does it take to win? Why do we think we can win? What are the competitors doing? What are they not doing so well? You know, what strategic things do we need to have in place in order to take advantage of an adjacent market?
So you're really sort of Mr. BD King at your firm. That emphasis is tremendous.
Yeah, well,
that's going to as a catalyst to grow the firm.
Yeah, my job is really just to get the people together and provide an environment so that they could talk about these things. You know, clearly I'm not the person that knows all things, but I do know.
What's your emphasis? You're putting the emphasis on it.
But when you pull people together, give them an environment to talk freely, to confront the things that they need to confront, that have the relational capacity with one another and committed to each other's success, great things occur.
And that is going to make cash king, because the business development is going to bring in the business.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So we talk about things from when a program is a twinkle in the eye, you know, of that leader. 1,000 days out, we start talking about, you know, what is it going to take to win that new program, and whether the program, whether we have an incumbency position or whether it's a new program for us, we spend just about the same amount of time. And over the last couple years, I think we've been fortunate and get some great results. We've taken our overall win rate from about the mid-teens range to just under 50%.
That's good.
Of
Kudos to
everything
you.
we go
That's
after.
great. And you just, your actual presence there and making it an emphasis and a priority for the firm has got forefront in everyone's minds.
Yeah, I agree. You know,
Yeah.
people just want to do good work.
Yeah, and they want to
when
please you
they're,
and do well for the company.
We like to please each other, I'm sure.
And please the pocketbook.
Yeah, you
Yes.
know, and reward the appropriate behaviors.
But in the right way, because it sounds to me also like what you're doing in the programs you're delivering, you're not just winning, you're winning because of the right values for the government.
Well, you have to have the right values because as a service provider, you know, our people are our products.
Yes.
And so it's important that you have the appropriate leadership in place so that they, the customer, want to continue to do business with us.
Right.
And that's what we focus on. And so far we've been successful.
At this part of the program, our viewers are familiar with this, that I always ask our expert about what keeps you up at night. And I don't mean it as an insult, as you look like you have no sleep. But you have a lot going on. You're doing a lot. You're doing a lot of things well. What, though, is troubling you? What might keep you up at night?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I would have to say, so my job, you know, forget about the fiduciary responsibilities of being chairman and CEO. My job is, you know, I have to set the tone, you know, for the organization. You know, I have to be the example and set the example as the type of leader that I want others to try to emulate. So I spend a lot of time reflecting on, you know, we all have constraints, and I have mine. And so what I try to do is I manage those constraints so that I can help unlock the value that's in you to outperform as a team member.
The individual members of the firm, the executives, and
Absolutely.
all the staff.
Right. So what keeps me up is, am I doing enough to manage my own constraints so that I can unlock the value of those 30,000 team members inside the company in order to make a difference? So of course it's all about, you know, the corporate responsibility I have, but as a leader, what am I doing to make a difference in somebody's life so that they can then outperform, outshine, and therefore take share
For DynCorp.
for DynCorp International.
Yeah. And then serving our nation too. That's
Absolutely.
what we're there for. Yes.
We do important things.
Yeah.
So really it's, am I doing enough as part of the team that keeps me up at night?
Well, I hope tonight, I know it's early in the day today, but I hope you sleep well tonight.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for joining us. I believe the viewers will have got a lot out of our conversation. So thank you, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Did you know there are 6 keys to effective capture and proposal leadership? And at least a few of them are going to really surprise you. For more information, contact us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.
Good morning, Alan. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
This morning we have with us Alan Weakley for our segment on Asking the Expert in This Region. Alan comes to us from CSC, where he heads up the defense public sector. I believe that CSC has about nearly almost 100,000 employees, something like 96,000.
That's correct.
And maybe you could talk just a little bit about what CSC is doing in your particular segment.
Okay, so I'm the president of CSC's Defense Group within the North American public sector. And primarily we're focused on serving our DoD clients. We have a mix of other federal clients like the Department of Energy and the Postal Service, but our principal focus is on the Department of Defense.
So with the Department of Defense, I know obviously, and everybody watching probably has, everything's rather pessimistic right now. We've got looming budget cuts, whether sequestration goes through or not. Do you have anything optimistic to say to our audience and to share this morning?
Well, it is a challenging environment. It's one that's fraught with a number of headwinds, but CSC historically is a commercial IT provider with a strong federal presence. And with that kind of a background, what we're able to do is to bring our commercial best practices in the areas of cloud computing and applications management and as-a-service products and infrastructures. And what we're finding is that in the federal environment, more and more the clients are looking for opportunities to save on their IT infrastructure so that they'll have more dollars for commercial platforms.
For efficiencies, they want to driving efficiencies for the taxpayer, yes.
Right. A dollar less spent on IT is a dollar that they can take to a platform and allows them to realize the kinds of efficiencies that historically have not been there. And so for us, we see this fairly optimistic. This is a good time to be an IT business in this environment.
Thank you. Alan, there's been a great amount of conversation and dialogue around and demand for migrating services to the cloud, migrating information to the cloud. What are you seeing though specifically in terms of that definition? And for our audience, what do you see are the trends around migration?
Well, it's clear that there's a high demand for the cloud within the government. There are early adopters. There are agencies like the FAA and the intelligence community that are looking for opportunities to have clouds of their own. There are other agencies like the DoD that are taking a little bit more methodical approach, that are taking a little bit a longer view on that. And what we're finding is that there are typically agencies that are ready to buy their own cloud, a private cloud. There are agencies that are more interested in taking what they've had and looking at a hybrid approach to cloud. And then there are finally agencies that are moving right out into the public cloud, which obviously means that the security requirements are a bit different. We look at each and every one of those opportunities. We have a solution for each one of those, and it really begins with a cloud assessment with our clients.
So they're trying to centralize, though, information into the cloud.
Yeah, really what the cloud gives you the opportunity to do is to move everything off of the desktop and really just have a virtual desktop with the employee. And it allows you to manage your licenses, get more control over your hardware.
And drive more efficiencies.
And drive more efficiencies into the program. That's absolutely right. The other area that we're intensely focused on and looking at is clients that are looking to have a measured approach to a cloud and maybe looking at things like legacy virtualization, where we'll come in and begin the process of taking to the cloud with partner solutions that we have through virtualizing their systems and their software, which enables them to get more out of what they already have.
And it enables mobility as well.
In the end, it does lead to mobility. That's certainly one of the outcomes that you have is once you are cloud enabled, you're able to work more efficiently and more effectively with mobile devices.
From remote areas.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah. Alan, there are many elements of a successful capture strategy. You're known as a hands-on capture manager, even in your leadership role. What is it that you're advocating your people do, and what makes it a unique way of winning?
Well, once we've selected an opportunity to pursue, to capture, we're looking for a strong voice of the customer. We're looking for representation on our capture team for that voice of the customer. Do we understand their requirements? Do we see their mission? Is there an alignment between our capabilities and what they're trying to achieve? The second is through our solutions architect and through our capture leads, do we have a point of view that is discriminating and is aligned with the mission? Do we have something that clearly distinguishes us or separates us from the competition? And again, we're looking for the partners, we're looking for the commercial best practices, and all of that confluence to come together and say, this is a unique solution for that customer.
So you are the perfect choice for them then?
We try to make sure that we're not just like everybody else, that we're bringing something to the table that makes the customer think about, is this a game-changing technology? Does this enable me to do something that I haven't been able to do? Or does this save me a significant amount of money? Again, so driving in utility pricing, bringing mobility enablement, any of those opportunities to do that for us adds up to the kind of capture that we're going to get behind. The next step for me is to have an absolute rock-solid capture team. Meet with them frequently. We have an executive steering committee where I chair, and we monthly review each of our opportunities and make sure that all of the resources are met, that the teams are enabled, and that there's no ambiguities about what it is that we're doing. Everybody is aligned and everybody is thinking the right way.
And they have their roles clearly defined.
They have their roles clearly defined,
yes.
as well as we're not going through requirements creep or solutions shifting. That we've selected upfront, we've selected the solution that's matched to what we think the price point is for that customer, and we're sticking to that. And that's the part where hands-on really comes into bear. You've got to stick to your guns, and you've got to interface with these folks continually, as well as surround yourself with strong principals, people that can continue to carry the message for you when you're not there.
Right. And then so members of our audience, maybe a smaller company, a subcontractor, when you say you want that unique differentiating offering, you want to have the right solution, what would you be looking for in a subcontractor?
Well, we work with well over 1,000 partners, and many of them are very well-known names out there, EMC, Hitachi, Oracle, SAP, and others. And I spend an awful lot of time meeting with their principals, talking about their technology. The process that we utilize is to bring together our senior leadership teams to talk about where we see our customers moving towards, what we see their requirements and what their particular needs are, and spend an awful lot of time talking with the partners about what their technologies are, where they're making their investments. Partners are outstanding to have, frankly, because they make the kind of IR&D investments that an integrator is not able to do. For the partners, we're outstanding to have around because we provide the channels, the access, and we have the understanding of the account. If you're a partner that's seeking to do business with CSC, we've got a global partner organization that begins with contacting us through csc.com.
And walks through the whole process.
And walks through the whole process,
Okay,
and absolutely.
great.
So we're always looking for the next generation of IT technology.
Well, the audience is going to love that. Alan, for our audience, I always like to ask, what are the keys to winning? And particularly, in case you don't know, CSC has just won the major CCOM, about $220 million contract.
Right.
This is a large contract, a significant contract. What were some of the keys to your winning that, and what advice do you have for our audience, Alan?
The absolute most important key to winning that was understanding the client and developing an enduring relationship with that client. Heretofore, we had a transactional-based relationship with that client, had worked as a subcontractor, had worked as a prime, but brought together a leadership team that really spent the time understanding that requirement, understanding the client's needs. This was a delivery order under the S3 contract where we're supporting the Army C4I systems that are deployed in Southwest Asia, particularly in Afghanistan. And that's a client that you have to be tightly aligned to their mission. And
you shaped it and spent a lot of time working with them over years.
Absolutely, absolutely. We invested substantially in understanding that client's
money,
responsibility.
time, energy.
The second criteria was having that understanding. We know and we knew that there were price sensitivities about the budget and around what the client was trying to do with savings. And so we developed our solution based on the price rather than the price based on the solution, and that was a significant enabler for us as well.
I think in this current milieu, that's for everybody all of the time.
Absolutely.
The price has got to be, you have to deliver the best you can, but within the price room.
Well, for us, it always begins with what we call the price to win, and then the solution that matches to that. In the old days, it was you sit down with your client, you maybe take out a napkin, and you create a unique solution for them, or
those days are gone.
Those days are long gone. What you need to do now is look at repeatable solutions that are enabling the kinds of savings and productivity that reduce touch labor that allow them to take those dollars then and put them to operations in the field.
Well, thank you. Alan has given us, I think Alan this morning gave us lots of, not just tactics and tips, but some specifics as to what anybody in our audience might want to undertake so they could have as many wins as you have. Congratulations on CCOM.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me this morning, Alan.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
This morning we heard from Alan Weakley of CSC and Steve Gaffney from Dyn International with regard to their perspective on the defense sector. Now I'm delighted to introduce Greg McCarthy, Chief Operating Officer of AOC Key Solutions, for his perspective and particularly on what it takes to win in the defense sector.
Good morning, my name is Greg McCarthy and I'm an Executive Vice President at AOC Key Solutions. You have just seen some key business development points highlighted by our two excellent guest speakers today. Steve Gaffney and Alan Weakley. In this day, in 2012, we've seen some real changes in defense contracting. Specifically, we've seen increased competition, we've seen fewer RFPs, and we've seen the advent of more lower-priced, technically acceptable contracts and proposals. It's very critical, as our guest discussed, that as a contractor, you keep your costs down and you stay nimble, you keep your overheads and your indirect costs down as we head into this level of austerity here in 2012. Here are 3 critical elements to important capture in 2012 in the defense market. The first one is know the customer. You must have customer intimacy in this day and age. Know their requirements, know their mission, and know the price to win a job. Both Steve and Alan this morning discussed the importance of customer intimacy. Specifically, they discussed the importance of having a strong capture team, having that team market the customer so the customer knows to expect your proposal, and when they get it, they want to read on. And then once they've done this, you have a higher chance of being the winning bidder. Second, be more selective. In this day of cutting budgets and having less bid and proposal money, we recommend that you remove the broad brush of bidding jobs and really be much more selective and be more discerning, as Alan said here today. Once you've done this, you can eliminate a lot of costs and really be specific and apply the proper rigor and practice in terms of your proposal development. Third, be unique. Develop a value proposition and a solution that resonates with the customer so they know what to look for, and you can save them either time or money, deliver them some operational efficiencies, and get your price right for the job. Finally, on the other side of the coin, as an incumbent contractor, remember the best customer is a current customer. Turn your incumbency into a real advantage whereby no challenger would want to spend their bid and proposal money to challenge you and to pursue this contract. They want to spend this money elsewhere. Have it so the government would find it too risky, based upon your excellent contract performance, to award this contract elsewhere. We've had our customers take our advice on these pointers for capture. One in particular, a small business, decided not to use the broad brush approach. They pursued their 2 or 3 must-win contracts. They won them while they retained their current incumbent contracts. Good luck in winning in the defense market, and I hope that you have enjoyed these tips. Thank you for tuning in to Government Contracting Weekly and for this segment of Ask the Expert.
As you listen to Steve Gaffney, Alan Weakley, and Greg McCarthy, I hope you gain some valuable insights in terms of managing your way through the complicated issues we're facing. Whether your own business is largely centered in the area of defense or any other sector of government contracting, it will be critical that your core competencies are at the center of your plan. We also hope that your plans include making Government Contracting Weekly a regular part of your routine. See you next Sunday.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.